explosions, chaos, orcs, dragons, dwarves, and guns galore. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is exactly the chaotic, comedy-driven powder keg you'd expect as a follow-up to the Borderlands 2 DLC.
A world forged by wonder and ruled by fate.
And while Wonderlands is inherently, at its core, a Borderlands-esque game, it's that core that makes the game around it so good. I'm Andrew Hamilton, and I'm joined here today by
Robbie Nolan.
And we're going to be talking about Wonderlands as we've been playing through it together, co-op style, and blasting our way with magic and guns through literally anything that moves. And sometimes things that don't move.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, like I said, the core of the game is obviously Borderlands, all the way through, specifically Borderlands 3. It shares a lot of that DNA. But I think that's a good thing overall. It doesn't feel like a reskin or like it's treading too close to that formula. I think that they did a good job of making the fantasy elements and the role-playing elements come through more vividly this time than you got with Borderlands. You just got to love that loot and shoot classic feel there.
Yeah, I mean, I had a really good time with it. We just completed the campaign, and it was fun from beginning to end. There wasn't really any like low spots or anything like that. I didn't really feel like I had to grind to get anything. There's a couple times when you're capped by level where, you're not recommended to go into areas, but you can easily just go do one of the side quests, which, for a game that has that kind of requirement, usually you have like really grindy types of side quests. And while there are a few of those, most of them feel like they're part of the main story, which is actually really great. It was actually kind of nice to see an RPG, especially one that could have taken itself not seriously at all because of the Borderlands backing that they had, actually go that next step and produce some really solid side quests and like side mission type content, stuff like that. Yeah,
I think talking about the story, the framework there they played it a little safe with the basic framework. You're a newcomer to the Bunkers and Badasses thing, which is, for those who don't know, it's the D&D of Borderlands. It's they put you in that familiar role of the chosen one, but it's kind of turned on its head a little bit.
The Fate Maker.
Yeah, the Fate Maker. But it's turned on its head by the story a bit that it's kind of almost a meta commentary on choice in video games in general, or even in like D&D, because you're the Fate Maker, but at no point do you actually get to make a choice that impacts the story individually. You make no fates. There is no fate that you make, which is fine. But it's kind of what the point of the villain in the whole game is trying to make. But I think that the tabletop RPG stuff that they brought to this game really shines through in the side missions and stuff, because much like a D&D campaign that gets sidetracked with a side mission that has nothing to do with the main plot, or even relatively something to do with the main plot, they are long, extravagant, sometimes drawn out stories where you're just like chasing around a dude in a blue hat. We didn't play this one, but I played this one in my solo run. There's just this big epic story that Tina's setting up in the back half of the game, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are gonna love this part. This is great." And they're like, "Who's that guy with the blue hat?" And she's like, "He's literally no one." They're like, "That's suspicious that you said that." And they get obsessed with this background character to the point where she has to change the story of the side quest halfway through to make him the villain. And it's just that like intrinsic tabletop RPG, playing with your friends and making shit up as you go kind of feel that makes that the story elements and the comedy and the writing come through so well. And especially with the killer cast that they had: Andy Samberg, Will Arnett, Wanda Sykes. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better cast of voices to follow you along.
Yeah, I mean, the voices, even the player voices that you get to pick, are just hilarious. I know that Andrew and I had a really great time playing together. I chose, I think it's I can't remember what it's called.
Strange.
Yeah, I think it's called the Strange voice, and he just has all kinds of weird things that he says and does. And then couple that with the meathead voice that Andrew picked for his character. It was really funny. Just running through the levels and listening to some of the stuff that the characters said.
Yeah, and the interactions between the various NPCs and stuff that you run into and the different character voices gives you kind of a unique feel for your character every time. Even though ultimately there's only 4 voice choices, it still feels like you got a different result than everyone else.
Yeah.
I think that it's overall, like from a gameplay standpoint, the gunplay is as smooth and fun as every Borderlands game that came before it. But there's like a chunkiness almost to the weapons in this game, because a lot of them are firing crossbow bolts or saw blades, and it just doesn't feel like you're rattling off bullets. There's some drop off in the power. You know, you can feel that you're not really holding a gun. You're holding a magic crossbow, and it's weighty.
Yeah. And like, I mean, they've got all kinds of crazy weapons. Like there's a style of weapon that's powered by a crystal that every time you have to reload, you have to sprinkle some more crystal, like magic dust on top of it. There's a whole, there's way more spells than I thought that there were ever going to be in that game. I played a spell shot, and sorry. I played a spell shot, and Andrew picked the first one, because you switched characters.
Oh yeah.
He was originally playing a
Spore Warden.
Spore Warden, yeah, that's right. And then he was playing a Clawbringer. But the spell shot was really great. I was kind of worried about picking it, but come to find out that it was actually one of the more popular classes that people picked. But there's some really devastating spells that you can use in that game, and all of them kind of have, like, you'll get different versions of kind of the same spell. But there's at least 20 different spells in that game that you can pick from, that are unique in the things that they do.
Well, that's just what we've run into in our short time playing. Because I'm sure if I know the developers of the Borderlands series at all, you know, every game has pushed the 15 gajillion guns kind of metric on all their stuff, and that normally includes like grenades and stuff. So I'm sure that they also would claim to have gajillions worth of combos on this. But I think that, yeah, there's a lot of like really cool variety to the like builds that you can get. I've got especially when it comes to like the legendary weapons, I've got a shotgun that fires a rain of arrows. You know, there's a spell that you can cast that throws a D20, and depending on what you roll from that D20, you get a different effect. There's all kinds of cool weaponry, and I think that's probably like my favorite part about even post game, you know, getting into like the epilogue stuff. Like, I'm excited for us to go back and rerun bosses and stuff, because I want to see what weapons we didn't get that are specific to like a you know, specific area or boss or something like that, and just find all the unique stuff to play around with.
I'm also interested in it's like the Chaos Vault or something like that.
Yeah, so I've run a couple of those now. The Chaos Room is essentially an endless dungeon crawl. They say endless. It has an end. It just varies. Where you're going to run into tougher enemies. You have side objectives and stuff, and while you pick up loot along the way, a lot of what you're picking up are these gemstones that you then get to use at the end on these special bunny statues that throw up weapons. You know, like you do.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like really fun variety there too, because there are like remixed versions of the boss fights. There's enemies that we never ran into. There's a mountain troll that when you kill him, he spawns more trolls that come out of his body and stuff. There's like a much larger dragon than what you can run into out in like the canyons and stuff. I mean, we've really only kind of scratched the surface of what's left in this game, because
I think the only part that I would say that is a little lacking, especially with the diversity of weapons and stuff like that, is the character builds. There's only like so many different like faces that you can pick. They do give you a bunch of colors for like your hair and like your armor and stuff like that, but it's not. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like it almost feels a little limited in the character design. Granted, if you're playing by yourself in particular, you're never going to see your character. So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it's still like you put all this work into like all the guns and stuff, and I don't feel like they put as much effort into the characters.
It's a lot of like subtle character creation stuff that you can do, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like it didn't feel like, especially initially, that there were a lot of options like you would find in some of the other RPGs out there.
Well, they made some weird choices too. Like you could get a dwarf head for your character, but you could not make them dwarf sized.
You have to turn on that
but even
engage
then,
the scaler.
No, even then, like the body is still just a small human like size.
Yeah, you can't actually be like a dwarf, just like you can't really be like an orc.
Yeah.
You don't get any of the body dysmorphia nonsense going on there. Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes with like the ground of, you want to have your character creator, but also make sure that everyone still kind of holds in line. So it's like you're wearing costumes, but also you got to remember that in the story of the game, it's a 13-year-old who's let you do all this. So
yeah,
maybe she didn't think that far ahead, Robbie.
It's true.
Give her a break. She's just a kid, all right? I do feel like, going back to the story, some of the elements are kind of a retread of the stuff from the original Tiny Tina's expansion for Borderlands 2, which you didn't play, so that's lost on you. It doesn't matter. But it did feel a little safe at parts where they probably could have worked a little farther down the line. But I mean, all in all, I think that the game is probably the best thing that they've put out of Gearbox in years. And I'm a big Borderlands fan in general. I played the crap out of Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3, and even played the remaster of Borderlands. But I just, there's something unique and special, and I had always hoped that they would do something like a follow-up to the expansion, which has some of my favorite parts of any Borderlands, anything in it. And getting this just felt like a special little treat, little thing just for us.
I mean, talking about the story, I mean, like I would say that it was a little shallower than I would have liked. But I know that they're trying to keep the whole lightheartedness and like just overall fun of the Borderlands series within the Tiny Tina's universe. So I wasn't like too upset about it, and I really enjoyed the storyline. I don't want to say that I didn't, but it wasn't on the scale that I had hoped that it would be. It is the best way that I would put it, probably.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of room for this DLC that's coming out to kind of increase the size and spectrum of available stuff. But I think all in all, with bombastic gameplay, tight-knit storytelling, and most of its adventures, the hilarious writing and voice acting, and just the general fun that we got out of doing the co-op, this one's an easy 9 for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say, I don't know, the storyline hurts it for me, so I would give it an 8, but I feel like that's still really solid.
Yeah, so we'll settle in the middle, 8.5.
There you go.
All right, well, that's Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Sorry that it's a month late almost, but it's been rough around here. A lot of sickness going around, so see you guys on the next one. And for more gaming news, reviews, and previews, stay tuned to Hardwired.